Unpopular opinion. Your thoughts are your thoughts, and therefore, you are your thoughts. And while I totally get that we tend to not think great things most times, as I myself have been deep, deep, deep in darkness, I believe it's the ultimate gift and power, which if you stick with me to the end, I will show you how. Let me try and explain. I'm going to start with a brief story about a scorpion, and I'll pump you full of pertinent data before we figure out how to make sense of ourselves. Imagine for a moment, if you would, that you are standing in the vastness of the desert. The wisest of teachers approaches you and draws a circle in the sand and tells you, this circle represents the world. He then places a scorpion symbolic of man inside the circle. The scorpion, believing it has achieved freedom, starts to run around the circle but never attempts to go outside. After the scorpion has raced several times around the inside of the circle, the wise teacher lowers his stick and divides the circle in half. The scorpion stops for a few seconds, then begins to run faster and faster, apparently looking for a way out, but never finding it. Strangely enough, the scorpion does not dare to cross over the line. After a few more minutes, the wise teacher then divides the half circle. The scorpion, he now becomes frantic. Soon after dividing the half circle, the wise teacher now makes a space for the scorpion, no bigger than the scorpion's body. Consider this the moment of truth. The scorpion, dazed and bewildered, finds itself unable to move one way or the other. Raising its venomous tail, the scorpion turns rapidly, round and round, in an absolute frenzy, whirling and whirling until all of its spirit and energy are spent. In utter hopelessness, the scorpion stops, lowers the poisonous point of its tail, and stings itself to death. The torment has ended. Unpopular opinion. Your thoughts are your thoughts, and therefore, you are your thoughts. And so as we continue this talk, I'd like for you to hold the vision of the circle and the scorpion somewhere real close to your chest, right around the heart area. For now, let's move on to the data, as it is crucial to our proceedings. 100% of people think thoughts. Of those thinking thoughts, which includes you, 85% are negative, 95% are repetitive. And of course, repetition deepens the impression. Now, while those are obviously high percentages, you might also be asking just how many thoughts are rattling around in our ever wonderful minds. And I'm glad you asked, because the data says we average about 45 thoughts per minute, which is about 2,700 per hour, and for the day equates to 60,000 thoughts. That's obviously a lot of thinking going on, and at 85% of it being repeating of negativity, this is the psychological definition of living as an ant. Yes, we did. We went from circles and scorpions to ant. ANT, which is an acronym for automatic negative thinking. And while I'm not a psychologist, any rational human, when presented with this information, would be hard-pressed not to agree that this automatic negative thinking, something probably to the effect of, I hate my life because I am broke, because my fridge is broken, because my landlord's a slumlord, because I don't make enough money to live somewhere else, because my job sucks, I hate everything about my life, it's evil. All of that would lead to a life of depression, anxiety, and defined rumination, amongst other negative connotations. Now, remember when I said 95% of your thoughts are repetitive? That 95% is also your subconscious, your autopilot, which believes everything you tell it. Such is the life of thoughts. So, given this massively obvious, painful form of ant living, circle in the sand, This is about the time I would cue the popular message in an honest attempt to try and help or persuade you to believe you are not your thoughts. And for the most part, I get it. But as a rational human, my next thought is, if you are not your thoughts and you think so many of them, then who are you? Because I intend to argue and persuade you into thinking that there's nothing wrong with your thoughts. And yes, partly because you don't have to be any of your thoughts, but it's more how you think of your thoughts. That's the problem, because breaking news, if you haven't learned already, your thoughts aren't going away. Now, given that we can now consciously and logically see how we get into ant living, automatic negative thinking, entrapped as a scorpion in a perceived circle with no way out, and I know, sounds grim and brutal, but I'm here, of course, because there is an absolute way out. But even now, before we get into some of those practices and how to get out, and in somewhat a sense of obligatory responsibility, let us very briefly highlight how you got here. Because if you're like me, you have to think, why would I volunteer to think so negatively? At this point, it should be clear, you have a conscious. You are already programmed. You were already exposed and trained. It's embedded in the code of your mind, highly influencing how you think. And how you think is now possibly a circle in the sand around your mind. We know that, right? What we need to agree then to as a premise around conscious thought programming is this. You are currently your thoughts primarily because of how someone else told you you should think. In other words, someone drew your circle in the sand for you because as conscious, spiritual, God-source beings, we were brought into this light as blank slate. My point, your ant struggles are largely due to how your identity was established, the circle in the sand. Your identity was established through outside programming, largely or likely all due to the relational experiences you have had in life, environmental, culture, religion, ethnicity, and so on. Now, while those are somewhat cliche, it's my belief that the major contributing factor leading to our automatic negative thinking ant life is the establishment of our self-conscious identity through the foundational label as quote-unquote sinners. We are essentially framed at birth as inherently insufficient because your thinking can be seen as wicked. Think about this. We are perceived to have free will mixed with schizophrenic, bipolar, and hypocritical restrictions in the form of commandments, judgments, and condemnation that make us self-conscious. Now let me reframe and restate our identity in less tangential fashion. Our identities, the circle and the stand, were established through constant judgment, criticism, comparing, contrasting, and constant condemnation, justified on the basis that we are imperfect, impure, and therefore unworthy. So what are we really left to do? Fret or fear not, for these thoughts are ours, and we absolutely have free will to challenge, command, and change them. The goal, therefore, from here is rewiring, rewriting, regenerating, reprogramming. It is your conscious rebirth. You're welcome. In my practice, the way out of ant living is through reverse engineering of your code and programming. Reverse engineering requires you to work backwards through the creation process, erasing the circle in the sand, if you would. And I'm sure you guessed it. You have to start practice conscious thinking. Some would say this is the traditional definition of mindfulness, and that's appropriate. Either way, I see it as a mental game of gymnastics. And the first game I play, I call the conscious watcher. The importance to begin is this. You will be conscious 5% of your day or life, which influences the 95% of repetition of thoughts I highlighted earlier. Super important. That 5% of awareness or consciousness can also be attributed or defined as being in the moment, to being present as we are together right now. The reason you watch your thoughts intentionally through presence in the moment is to learn your thoughts, and more importantly, the triggering effect of those thoughts. You are therefore now sitting above your thoughts, and what you are now witnessing by watching are essentially emotions. We think because we are trying to express how we feel. So as you sit as conscious watcher, you'll see that there are many thoughts that trigger you to be anxious. Yet there's only one feeling of anxiousness. There are many thoughts that trigger you to be angry, but only one feeling of anger. There are many thoughts that trigger you to be depressed, but only one feeling of depression. So what does all this really mean? Two things, from what I can see and in my opinion. First, you can sit right through those emotions and thoughts, and when you sit long enough, you will see what eventually always happens. They pass on, both the thoughts and the feelings. And when they pass on, you will see what eventually always happens. You are still right here and present. And for the most part, all is good. The next logical question then is, why must I think like this when I feel this way? The answer, of course, is you don't have to. You don't have to associate any negative thoughts with any emotion or have labels of any kind for that matter. You don't have to believe you are a problem or that you have a problem, or any thought that is labeled as a problem doesn't need to serve you. What really is a problem? The conscious watcher can see what he is thinking as just that. And eventually, if you don't want to think them, then think differently. You don't have to be your thoughts. Now, here's some brief specifics for how and when I play the conscious watcher game, as I think that's pretty important from my viewpoint. I practice mindfulness and presence for 30 minutes through prayer and meditation to start my day, and 30 minutes again through prayer and meditation to end my day. There is a significance here. The significance being creating intention for when I enter and exit consciousness, presence, and awareness. The light when I rise, the dark when I sleep. I think it's pretty dope and a lot of fun. The second game I play is red light, green light. And I do this Squid Game style. It's almost an extension of the watcher. Because since now I set my intention during consciousness and presence, I'm now careful of all my thoughts, and certainly the ones I allow to repeat. Therefore, I train myself to come to consciousness or presence whenever I get into any negative thought or thought pattern. Let me explain. Let's say I'm writing a script for an episode, or recording like I'm doing right now, running outside, lifting, reading, writing, or even just chilling and relaxing. And I have an insecure moment. Maybe I'm having one right now. I start to maybe feel like this is not going to work. I feel a little stupid, a little weak. The watcher triggers, and I put up a red light, and I immediately stop what I am doing to pause and look at my thought or thoughts. And I stay there watching and keep the red light red and don't move on to another thought until I let this one pass or I resolve it. And if it's total nonsense, some insecure bullshit, I immediately shoot it down and kill it. I don't need to think it because that's not what I want to feel, and it's total nonsense. If it's something different that needs a deeper resolution, I just work through it. Whether it's a few quick deep breaths, walking away, putting the weight down, taking a brief pause, I kill it with peace and love and then I move on. Point being, I don't set the light to green and return into a subconscious flow, the repetition portion, until I acknowledge myself and make the proper conscious, present, moment decision that makes me feel good. And once you can do this, the same concept applies across the board. Spouse is tripping out, kids are screaming, boss is being an asshole, Walmart clerk, stranger walking down the block. Whenever they trigger me or it triggers me, I just put the red light up. I do a quick systems check to see what's going on, come to presence in the moment, remind myself of who I really am and who I want to be, and boom, I move on. My thoughts. These are two of the powerful exercises I run consciously to keep my thoughts straight as I go and grow through my life. I must re-emphasize and put an exclamation mark on why your thoughts matter. Thought is the first step in the holy trinity of creation that I speak of frequently. Thoughts lead to feelings expressed in words, which lead to your behavior and thus your identity and everything about your life. So now, if you're still watching, here you go. Up until this video, you were and still are not your thoughts. They're someone else's, or they're entirely irrelevant and mislabeled through unnecessary judgment. But it shouldn't stay that way. If you can watch your thoughts and know that it is not truly you, then you can transition your thoughts into who you truly believe you are. You can begin to think differently about your thoughts and transition from tranquility to tenacity, docile to discipline, cowardice to courage, fear to love. It is, after all, to evolve or expire. Motivational mantra, I know, because yes, even after all the work I have done, there's still part of me that just believes in killing off my old thoughts because I am not them. That I don't have to be them because I am not them. And I don't want to be them because it frightens me. And in some sense, that's true. But what I learned and hope truly resonates with you is this. I am not my thoughts that I don't want to be, not because I kill them off or ignore them, not because I am not afraid, don't feel depressed, and even anxious sometimes. I am not my thoughts because I am them, but consciously make the choice not to behave as them, and thereby no longer need to think them. Circle in the sand. Unpopular opinion. Your thoughts are your thoughts, and therefore, you are your thoughts. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.